to this, the Building Apps for Windows Phone 8.1 Jumpstart. I'm Andy Wigley.
I'm Matthias Shapiro.
And we've got 2.5 days of great content for you, which is going to take you through building apps for the new phone platform. I'm a technical evangelist. I work for Microsoft in the UK. I was an MVP for 10 years before I joined Microsoft a couple of years ago. I've got a blog, andywigley.com, and written a few books. I've got a note there. Don't buy the latest one because it's kind of out of date now. These days, I prefer to do things like this, videos and speaking at conferences and blogging and that kind of stuff, and a bit more immediate. So yeah, I just say I'm a rock star as well. I play in a band, you know.
Right. I'm Matthias Shapiro. I'm a program manager at Microsoft and a technical evangelist. I'm a longtime XAML developer. I've been working since the WPF days, mostly in XAML. I started as a UI developer and kind of worked my way backwards into more devy sort of stuff. And I've been doing Windows Phone since the beginning. I do demos and I make a lot of noise about it on blogs and Twitter. And yeah, so that's
cool.
Me.
Great. So this is the agenda, what we're going to take you through here. The first session, which I'm just going to get into in just a moment, it will introduce the dev platform to you. It's going to, we'll talk about what the key deliverables are and a kind of a preview of what everything that we're going to be seeing through the rest of this jumpstart. Now, the next sessions there, which are highlighted in a curious hue of purple, that's different color because that's kind of like a mini course, if you like. This is all about building Windows XAML based apps using the new Windows Runtime APIs. So the Windows Runtime flavor of XAML, which is the same one that we've got from on big Windows 8.1. But that's now, as part of this release, that comes down to Windows Phone. So the first part of it is going to take you through building apps using that new XAML, which if you're an existing phone developer, it's kind of similar, but a lot of differences from what you're used to with Windows Phone Silverlight. Then sessions 9 and 10, we're going to wrap up this afternoon, around about 3 p.m. on Pacific time. We're going to get onto that and run through till 5. From that point on, we're into Windows Runtime APIs, and these are available whether you're programming in Windows Runtime XAML or you're using Windows Phone Silverlight XAML. So all this, the rest of the stuff, really from here to the end, is available to everybody. So that's day one. Tomorrow, if you're watching this live, is going to be, we're going through loads more of these Windows Runtime APIs, the background tasks, the great maps, geofencing, loads of new stuff about networking, great, obviously, new tiles, notifications, Action Center, NFC Bluetooth, user data, camera, enterprise stuff, a lot of good stuff in there, a short session on doing programming SQLite, and then tooling and diagnostics. So that's through tomorrow. And I should mention that some of these sessions are kind of an hour when there's plenty to say, and others are kind of half an hour. So the slots here are not actually all equal length, but that'll take us through day 2. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with just a little half day on Thursday, which is talking about the store, packaging, and that kind of stuff. Then we're going to really go into the universal apps. So we're going to obviously touch on universal apps throughout this course because this is one of the big deliverables with this release. But this is a session where we're going to go in and say, okay, what's it really like to build an app, a universal app for both Windows Phone and for the tablet or PC. And then finally, a session that's solely for Silverlight devs. So if you're an existing Windows Phone application developer and your skills are Silverlight XAML, we've got some things that are going to help you succeed on Windows Phone 8.1. So that's the agenda. And into the first session proper. So this is introducing what we've got with Windows Phone 8.1. So in this one, give you a little introduction to what are the key things about the new release from the consumer point of view. And then we'll look at the dev platform, about what we've got in there. A brief overview, which is kind of like, a high-level preview of what we're going to talk about in depth on the rest of this, how you get started, and then a little bit about your choices as a XAML developer. All right, so Windows Phone 8.1. As you know, if you're watching this live, you'll know that build happened a few weeks ago, and that was when the SDK was first released out to the world. So this is the new Windows Phone SDK and the Windows Phone OS. Now, what top reviewers have been saying great stuff about this for a while. It's a very popular OS, keeps winning great awards from reviewers, and even the ones on blue there, quotes there, those who've had a look at 8.1 are all in agreement that what we've got is a great new release. What we've done with the hardware side of things, Windows Phone 8.1, is we kind of decreased the cost of creating Windows phones. For example, we've worked with Qualcomm to come up with a Qualcomm reference design. This is a kind of a ready-to-go, the OS integrated with hardware based on Qualcomm chipset and everything, and it allows an OEM to come along, take that, and with a minimum of customization to get a phone out really cheaply, so it reduces their customization costs. We've got dual SIM support, which is really important in certain markets, and loads of apps and a platform that's really aimed at making sure that users are feeling in control of their data costs. So apps like DataSense, Wi-Fi Sense, which helps you to connect to free Wi-Fi services when you're around, and Wi-Fi Sense and Battery Saver, which shows you which apps are most power hungry. So you can choose to uninstall those that are not being friendly with your battery. So that was the hardware, and then on the software, loads of great features which end users will enjoy. The Action Center, of course, where you swipe down from the top. That's just such a great feature. You can easily get at your settings and your notifications, and this great Skype app integration, a fantastic new calendar app, huge improvement on the old one. The Wordflow keyboard is awesome for doing typing really swiftly. You just swipe around your finger on the keyboard. There's the ability to, if you buy an app for the PC, you can also have the kind of rights to install for free on the phone and vice versa. App data roaming among devices, start screen backup and restore. So now if you buy a new phone and you plug it in, and any of you who have done this will know that you can choose to restore a backup from a previous phone, and that would restore, your apps and that sort of thing. That was a good start on Windows Phone 8. Well, in Windows Phone 8.1, it will also restore your start screen and all your tiles and everything. So that's really cool. Woo. Yeah. Faster updates, app data, so the backup your files for your apps store, they'll be backed up overnight up to OneDrive as well, if you wish. Again, all this is under your control as the user. Remote viewing. So this is the thing, like when Microsoft evangelists go and do a demo and they show a phone, and we'll be using this, of course, in the Jumpstart. They show the phone on the big screen. Everybody says, "Oh, can I do that?" And for various reasons, we weren't able to open that out to everybody before. But now this is a built-in feature. Every single person who has a Windows phone can plug in a USB cable, and later on with newer phones use Miracast Wi-Fi as well. You'll be able to then view your phone screen on a PC or on a TV screen. Yep. So that's really cool. Everybody gets that.
And a lot of these new features, while they're features for users, they have really great developer counterparts so that we can integrate the best way we possibly can, make sure our applications are taking advantage of all those great new features that the users have access to. So.
Yeah, and the final point on there, users can install apps to the SD card. So the SD card is really becoming more valuable. Again, this is going to be particularly useful for low-cost phones. They can expand the storage, and then apps can go on the built-in storage or onto the SD card. So all cool stuff. Some other features, I'm just going to pick out just a few. The start screen, you can actually put a picture now behind. So this is really nice. This is a good reason why, if you're an app developer, you might want to start using, putting tiles into your package with a transparent background, which in the past would have just taken the user's chosen accent color, which is kind of nice, but everything tends to look the same color then. But now, if you put a photo in the background of your start screen, that will shine through anywhere where it normally would be, where it would normally be the accent color on Windows Phone 8. Really nice effect, and you can get your own pictures on there.
A little parallax in the background.
Yeah, it's nice, yeah. And we've also expanded this what we call three columns, which actually means 6 mini tiles. But 3 columns was brought out for the update 3 of Windows Phone 8.0, just for the big phones initially, the big 6-inch super phones.
Yep.
That's now available to everybody. So if 3 columns is your thing, you can even have that down on a 4.5-inch phone. Personally, I wouldn't bother, but
it's a little small for me.
Yeah, for me too. Oh yes, Cortana. So yes, Cortana. You all know about this. Okay, this is the speech-activated assistant, and learns about you and your interests, and helpfully is proactive. So it will tell you if something's coming up, like there's traffic problems that might stop you catching your flight. So it learns about you and helps become a helpful assistant, and you interact with it through speech. So this is really nice. It's only going to be. We're not going to talk a lot about this, I'm afraid. Mainly because it's only out in the US initially in a few months, and then it will extend to the UK and China by the end of the year, and then it will get out to other territories after that. So You can integrate with this through voice commands, which is actually the same feature we had in Windows Phone 8. So if you want to know how to integrate with Cortana, watch the speech session from the last Jumpstart, starring yours truly, which is up on Channel 9. The speech session from there is actually all we're going to say about Cortana integration, I'm afraid. But it's a good session, even though I say it myself, from the previous Jumpstart. So that's that one. All right. So, if you haven't got Windows Phone 8.1 on your device, how do you get it onto your phone? Well, first of all, of course, any new devices that are sold into market from the near future will obviously have Windows Phone 8.1 pre-installed. Now, if you've already got a phone running Windows Phone 8.0, one thing is to say is there's no technical reasons why that phone cannot run Windows Phone OS 8.1. Now, whether an update is made available for your particular device, actually, and when that happens, is actually not, unfortunately, in our hands. That is if you've got a contract device that you've got through a mobile operator, it's up to them to make the update available to you. So we hope that will happen for the majority of you in short time, but that's not under our control. However, if you're you can't wait for that, and you are consider yourself a bit of a developer, or even actually if you're not a developer but you want to pretend to be a developer, you can get the OS onto your phone very easily. First of all, if you've got a developer account, so you've signed up for a dev account at dev.windowsphone.com, or you've registered for appstudio.windowsphone.com, which is this web tool for creating apps that run. It was only on the phone, and actually we announced an update that's coming, and now apps will run on tablet as well. But if you register for that, and that's free, then you can have access to this thing, which is the preview for developers. So the Windows Phone 8.1 preview for developers, it's just an app. So you download this app and you run it, and then it will ask you for your Microsoft account credentials when you run it. That's how it figures out whether you're a proper developer or not, whether you've registered in one of those ways I just spoke about. And if it is, then what it does is it just changes the lookup addresses where the phone check for updates thing goes to where it looks for OS updates, and it directs it to Microsoft servers rather than the MOs. So in that way, you can get the update, and a good number of people, and the fact this was opened up, what was it, last week?
Yep.
Beginning of last week. And there were a lot of people doing it because particularly my phones, particularly when the US, I was in the UK at the time, so it was cool in the morning. They had good access. And then the US people woke up and they all got a bit slow. So it was very popular. So you can get it, and that's how you can get it onto your phone. So you can enjoy it now. So get on and do it. All right, so what's in this release for the developer? Well, the big thing is about bringing one Windows to developers, this converged developer platform. So the big deliverable with this, it is about merging. It's delivering on this one Microsoft promise. It's delivering a converged developer platform where you can now very easily build apps for phone and tablet at the same time and share a very, very high percentage of your code. Lots of other good stuff. We've got improved push notification services, great new features in live tiles. The Action Center is actually programmable, so you can control some of the notifications that are in there. We've got a whole new and very much expanded background execution. I'm going to go into these in a bit more detail in a moment. And things like Bluetooth LE support and new browser. Now, this platform convergence is nothing new. So we've been actually doing this for quite a while. If you go back to Windows Phone 7.5, what was called at the time the Mango code word, at that time we converged the browser. So Internet Explorer was exactly the same code base on Windows Phone as it was on big Windows. But that was it, actually. And then we get to Windows Phone 8, then we really started to move big steps towards this converged platform. So the big thing here actually didn't change so much, unless you were a games developer, didn't really change so much what happened to you as a XAML-based app developer, for example. But what happened was we fixed the foundations. We put this whole new OS in underneath. So the OS changed from a Windows CE-based OS on Windows Phone 7.5 to the Windows NT kernel. So it's the same core OS as we've got on big Windows. And there were a lot of modules were shared, like the kernel and networking and that kind of stuff. We've got BitLocker and Secure Boot in there as well, all shared between the two platforms. So from the developer platform point of view, yeah, gamers, they had a really good story. So it was very easy to develop a DirectX, Direct3D based game and have it on Windows and port it very easily to phone and the other way around. And also still because we had Internet Explorer 10 there as well, so if you were doing web development. Get to Windows Phone 8.1, and this is where we complete the, we square the circle, as they say. So this is where we converge right the way across the board. So we've now got a truly converged dev platform with it's great opportunity now for you to train yourself up with one XAML-based skill set and know how one way of doing things, and it's going to work across both the platforms. We've also aligned the stores and then the Windows RT layer, the APIs underneath, hugely converged, and that extends to both the new flavor of XAML, which has come down from Windows, and also Silverlight XAML, which is what our existing developer community has been using up till now. So both of them are equal citizens in this new world. Right, so this is a picture now of what it looked like with Windows Phone 8.0. Well, Windows Phone 8, we never actually said 0.0, but just for the sake of lack of confusion, so 8.0. So we had a little bit of convergence there. So the big blue circle, that's the Windows APIs, big Windows. The little red circle there, that's the phone set of APIs. And as you can see, there's a bit of convergence there, mainly about in-app purchase. There was some sensors. There was a bit about storage, but that's pretty much it, not a lot. But then, with this release, this is where we've come to. So over 90% of the APIs are exactly the same on big Windows and a Windows Phone. Why is it not 100%? Well, there's a few little edge cases where there's some stuff that only makes sense on phone and some stuff that only makes sense on big Windows. And we recognize that the way you use these devices actually is a little bit different. So we've converged everything that makes sense to converge, and then there's a few little bits on the outside where we might have some unique APIs.
Yeah. So with Windows 8.0, I think the biggest way to talk about this, and I think the most exciting one, is with 8.0, we would generally say the storage is converged. So you can use this, and this code would work across both. And we would call it out when the 8.0 would fit with Windows and Windows Phone. It worked across. But in this jump start, we're actually going to call out when it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because almost everything you're going to see is going to be, it works on Windows, it works on Windows Phone, exact same way. And when it doesn't, we'll let you know.
Yep. So this is a confusing block diagram of all the kind of bits and pieces that make up the dev platform, kind of into broad boxes of API sets. It's not particularly meant to be, pinpoint accurate, but it's to give you a flavor of what we've got. The big boxes on the top are your kind of choices as a developer. WinJS, which is HTML and JavaScript. Then we've got Windows Runtime XAML, which you can code with C#, Visual Basic, or C++ for your logic. DirectX for gamers. And then on the right, we've got this different colored box, which is the Windows Phone Silverlight. So this is the phone-only bit. So Windows Phone Silverlight, obviously still 100% supported and totally a great platform for building Windows Phone apps with. But that's the one that's different. Everything else that's colored the same is exactly the same across big Windows and Windows Phone. So yeah, this is another way of looking at those boxes across the top. These are your app development for native apps, your app development choices for Phone 8.1. DirectX, Direct3D, you get your programming using mainly C++, although actually this is gaming, so most of your games developers will use one of the middleware vendors. Unity is becoming really, really popular, and there's a good number of others that are really good platforms as well. I'm afraid in this jumpstart we're not going to talk about gaming. I mean, if we start talking about gaming and WinJS, we'd be here for like 3 weeks, not 3 days. So we have to draw a line somewhere. So this is going to be, the jumpstart is really going to focus on building with XAML and C#. Mm-hmm. So yeah, in the middle we've got WinJS. This is if you're an HTML and JavaScript developer, you prefer working with those, you can build native apps for Windows Phone, as you can for Windows 8.1, of course. So that is now supported on Windows Phone in this release as well. So that's really exciting if those are your preferred tools of the trade. On the right there, then we've got these two flavors of XAML, the Windows Runtime XAML and the Windows Phone Silverlight XAML. So they kind of, those of you who've tried to build for both in Windows Phone 8 know that you can do it, but you have to be fairly adept and agile about it. You have to get everything well organized. In terms of the XAML, stuff kind of works the same way. It looks the same, and actually you'll recognize all the tags are the same, and they do roughly the same things. But actual fact, the way an app, it's more than just the XAML, it's the kind of framework around it, how an app responds to being suspended and terminated, that sort of thing. So it is a little bit different between Windows Runtime XAML and Windows Phone Silverlight XAML. And like the next sessions 2 through 8 will come after this, we're going to be focusing on that dark green box there, the Windows Runtime XAML. you're not seeing that. That's all right. There we go. The dark green box there, the Windows Runtime XAML. Yeah. And actually, the bullet point at the bottom of this is almost the most important one on this slide. In that any app, you can carry on writing using the tools that you've used up till now if you're a phone dev. So you could write an app today using Visual Studio 2012, targeting Windows Phone 7.5. And that will run just great on Windows Phone 8.1. So everything you've written up to now will run great on Windows Phone 8.1. So you can carry on using existing tools and move on up and use the new APIs when it makes sense for you. So there's no break here. Any apps written for the earlier versions will run just great. Right, after that quick intro of the platform, let's actually do a demo. So I'm going to show you what it's like to actually to build an app that's a universal app for the phone and the tablet. What? Hang on. All right, that surprised me. Just bear with me while I log into my machine. Here we go. Okay, Visual Studio. Visual Studio 2013 with the new tools which are available to everybody. This is the same build that was released at the same version that was released at Build. It's the release candidate of the Phone SDK. I'm going to create myself a new project. And what I'm going to create is you'll see here, I'm in Visual C#, which is my preferred language, and we've got Store Apps as the options. And under there, in the new project thing, we've got three choices, three categories. Universal apps, these are, you're building a project that's targeting both. Or you can choose to build just for big Windows, Windows 8.1. Or you can choose to target just Windows Phone. Now, none of these are dead ends, because if you build a Windows Phone app, you can right-click on it and say add Windows to this project as well, so to this solution as well. But I'm going to build straight away a universal app. And it's worth mentioning before I move on, although this Store Apps category is repeated both for Visual Basic, for Visual C++, and also for JavaScript. So all the different flavors, but they've all got the same kind of new project templates in them. So anyway, let's create ourselves here a project. I'm going to call this Flickr Search. And I'm going to create this. It's going to be a little app that talks to Flickr, this is the app. You'll see that in the Solution Explorer, I've got a Windows project. In this solution, it's got three projects. If we look up here, we've got a Windows project. Scrolling down, we've got a phone project. And down here, we've got this shared area as well. So this shared area is where shared stuff that's going to be built into both is going to be put. So I'm immediately going to add some new files to this, which I've prepared already. Two files, add them in, and these are added in. Now, just to give you a flavor of what this is a class called Flickr Photo Result. So when we get objects back from Flickr, they're going to be representing, images are represented by that. Then I've got this search async method, which goes off, it uses an API called HTTP client, which we'll look at tomorrow, which goes off to HTTP and does a search. And it will return back a collection of objects. Now, that's all you need to know about that for now. So let's go and do some design on our Windows app. So here we go. This is our big Windows app. And I'm going to select you'll notice that it's just got a single grid defined on our page. There's our closing tag for the page. And here's our grid. This is XAML, of course, if you've not seen it before. And I'm going to create myself a couple of rows on it, so we can do some layouts, because that's created a couple of rows. I'm going to make that 100 pixels high, and this one will be 40 pixels high. And let's scroll this up a bit. So I'm going to then add in some controls on this. And I've got a little bit of XAML that I've pre-prepared, which is, all this is put a little header on it. Here's my text block on the top of this, and I've got a text of Flickr, which you can see up there, and I've applied a nice style on it to give it the, to make it look quite nice. Then underneath that I've got a grid view, which is going to show our photo results. And inside the grid view, I need to define how each item that's going to be shown in that grid is going to look. So I've got what's called a data template, which we're going to talk about when we get to the list session, if you haven't come across these before. A data template, this is the layout that's going to be used to show every image that we show on the screen. So we've got an image, and we've got a text block which is going to be shown. So the image, so we're going to get a picture, and underneath that we're going to get the text, which is the name of it basically. So let's go off to our main page under here. This is where the code that's behind this is going to go. And I'm going to insert another snippet in here, which is this is going to make a call to our. You'll see what we've got here is on Navigator 2 is a method that in the framework that executes when you go to a page. And so what it's going to do is it's going to look for. You can pass in a search term, but if we don't give one, we're going to default to the search term flowers, and that's going to call this search Flickr method, which is defined just below here. I'm going to have to fix up a couple of. What this does is it makes a call to search async, and then when we get our results back, it sends that off to the page, and we'll talk about this in session 3 what this means. But essentially, this is going to take those results and throw them up to the page for being displayed. And then I've also got a couple of things that are just for interest, where we can update tiles and send the toast. And I just need to fix up some references on that to get some namespaces brought in so that all of this will build. And I think that should be good. So now we can try and run this, and we'll see what we get back. So this is our Windows app, remember, and there we are, it's coming up on the screen. We're calling out to Flickr, and we've got some nice pictures. So there we go. It's pretty nice, and we can scroll across. Got lots of nice pictures of flowers there. So that was nice and simple, a call out to Flickr. Now what about building our phone app? So I'm going to switch to the different startup project. Now what we can do actually is, it's the same XAML, so why don't we just copy it? So I'm going to copy everything inside our grid. Try to anyway. Here we go. Copy it from the Windows app, and let's go and do some design on our phone app. So here's our main page for the phone app. So we're going to run into the designer. There's our phone designer screen. Let's just make sure we can see all of that. So we can say fit all. There's our phone screen, nothing on it. And we can just paste that XAML straight into that. It's the same. I mean, we're going to have to fix up a few spacing to make it appropriate for the phone. Let's take that out there as well. Let's make that a bit bigger in the template. Let's just try that and see. I think I probably need to do some, let's try that and see. That should do it. Now, okay, now at the moment in here, I haven't got any logic on this page either. Now I could insert that same snippet that I did before. And that would work just the same because all the code is compatible. It's exactly the same APIs underneath it. So, but actually what I'm going to do is, because that would end up with the same code in 2 places, and I don't really want to do that. So what I'm going to do is copy all the code that I already created for the Windows app, and then I'm going to go down to my shared folder and create add a new class in here, which we'll call main page .xaml.cs. I could call it whatever I like actually, but this to be sensible, and then paste that all into there. Now, what am I doing here? The key word here is this one, partial here. So it's a partial class. Now I'm going to take the constructor out, And then I'm going to go back to my main page. What partial classes are in C# is it allows you to distribute the code that makes up a class that will be compiled into one object. You distribute it across different physical files. So it means that because this is shared, this is going to end up in the phone project and in the Windows project. So I can go over here now and simply delete all of this, because otherwise it would be duplicated. And it will be brought in anyway because it's the partial class, and just leave the I'll just leave the constructor. I like to leave something in there just because the designer gets kind of upset if it really hasn't got. I could have moved that all the way down to the shared thing, but the designer gets upset if you don't have a backing file. And that on Navigator 2 is in the shared file as well. So now I've got it minimalist. All the code, the logic is in that shared thing. And if I run it on the emulator. Here's my emulator. This is a Hyper-V virtual machine, by the way. So it's running the true Windows Phone OS, and there's our pictures again. So then we've created. There's still some work to do, maybe to fix up the alignment and maybe put some spacing in. But you see the principle, same code working on both. We can do some other stuff as well. So if I go into the app manifest and set toast capable to yes on the Windows on the phone project, and let's do the same on this one. We get toast capable to yes. Now, if you remember in that main page, we go back and look at it again. When we search, we call some other stuff, which is update tile and send toast. I'm not going to bother showing the tiles because just for time, but this is in the sample which we're going to make available to you. So you'll update some tiles, and it also will send a toast. This exact same method is going to execute on both platforms. So if you do it on the phone first, here it is running on the phone, and we get our thing. The pictures come up, and if the gods are with us, we should get a toast pop up in a moment as well. Which is coming from the notification services. There it is, the toast came up. Woo. Woo. And that's the Sony DSC, which is just the text associated with that, and we've got our nice notification center as well there. There it is, Sony DSC. And we can, obviously, just to prove the point, we can run the same back onto, I need to change projects. Change this one, set that was the startup project, and run that one, and of course that will work just the same as well. So, we get our pictures up. There we go. This one, we should get a toast saying P11800478 come up in a minute. Coming up now. Any minute now. You know you want to. Maybe I need to terminate. No. I need to terminate this. I think it will come up in a second. First demo bomb of the day. I'm sure that will come up in a while. Anyway, we'll leave that. Okay. Now then, so that was a quick demo which shows you how to build a quick idea of what it's like to build a universal Windows Phone and Windows app. We've still got two heads. We recognise that using a tablet is a different experience to using a phone. But what we do is we make it really easy to share loads and loads of your code. And Matthias is going to be digging a bit deeper into kind of more a real-world example. That was a fairly trivial example, but something a bit more realistic on Thursday.
Yep.
All right.
We'll be talking in bits and pieces about the different ways to do some different techniques. We've got a lot of different sessions that touch on this cross-platform development, and so this will kind of permeate the entire Jumpstart as we go along. Yeah,
I mean that partial class thing is just one technique you can use, but that was kind of just to show the possibilities.
Yeah.
All right, I'm very quickly and at high speed now going to run through. This is kind of, think of this as what's coming up. So coming up later in this Jumpstart. All right, the first and most important new feature for developers of Windows Phone SDK 8.1 is what we just saw. This converged platform. You can create a single app that targets Windows Phone, or a single solution, targets Windows Phone and big Windows. And we just saw that. But it's also, obviously, the tooling and everything's the same. This is really powerful for building apps using Windows Runtime XAML. We've also got Win.js. So this is the HTML and JavaScript flavor of building native apps, Windows Phone Store apps. So that's really cool. That's come to the phone. Unfortunately, we are not going to cover that in this Jumpstart. Again, that's a whole
big subject that deserves a jumpstart all of its own. I would suggest so. Yeah, and the good news is that if you follow the APIs that we go, you can go and look at those up on MSDN, and you'll actually see the JavaScript counterpart right there. You can click on a tab and go look over there. So it takes a little bit of work, but you can draw a correspondence between what you're seeing here and the JavaScript side. Yeah. We've got this thing called a common canvas for screen diversity. So we'll talk a little bit about this later today in a lot more detail. But actually, if you're a Windows Phone dev, you'll know that up till now we've had this kind of convenient arrangement whereby every phone was kind of 480 pixels wide, regardless of its physical size, logically. So, which is kind of all right when phones were 4.5, 5 inches. They're kind of physically similar sizes. But these super phones, like the 520 here, these monsters, beautiful phones, but they're big screens, So if you start creating one design that looks good on a 4.5-inch phone, and then you run the same app on a 6-inch phone, it can kind of look comically large sometimes. So anyway, we changed it for Windows XAML runtime apps only. We've got this kind of flexible arrangement that more closely mirrors the physical size of the screen. So we'll talk about that and how you design for that later on today. In Windows Runtime XAML we're talking, we've got this converged control set. So, you saw me using grids and stack panels, text blocks and grid views in that little demo I just did. Of course, there are many different controls. We've kind of divided them up into 3 broad groupings. We've got common controls which look exactly the same on both platforms. We've got these things we call optimized controls, which you program in exactly the same way, but when they render at runtime, they kind of do something a bit different depending on what platform they're running on. And a great example of that is the date picker, which on Windows Phone you have this nice swipey rotary controls, but on the tablet or PC you're into sort of more traditional, if you like, drop-down boxes. And there's others that work like that as well. And the last one that we call signature controls, just because it's nice to think of them in this as a separate category. But these are the controls that really encapsulate the Windows user experience, the kind of the feel, the way, the look and the feel, and the animations, all the nice way that our apps, the quality that they exude. Hopefully, I'm getting carried away with myself. But these controls help you to build great experiences, and they're big page layout ones like Hub and Pivot, and then listing ones like List View and Grid View. This is an example of how this is actually a kind of a hub view, where an example that you can use to tailor the UI. So you might choose to have just an image on the a travel app for the Windows Phone, and then on big Windows, both of these are the hub control, but you've changed the layout. You've programmed the layout. The designer has programmed the layout in XAML, so you're presenting a different experience that's appropriate for the device and where it's running. Speaking of animations, this one is thrown in for you Windows Phone 8 devs out there. You will know that building Windows Phone 8 apps and getting nice animations in was kind of tricky. It wasn't really baked into the kind of platform. It is for Windows XAML. So Windows Runtime XAML, you get all this stuff is built in. All the controls have all the nice, touchy-feely stuff that you would expect. It's great. Background tasks. Again, on Windows Phone 8, we used to have 2 flavors of that. On Windows 8.1, we're converged with Big Windows and Windows Phone 8.1. We've got loads of ways you can run code in the background, hugely expanded on time zone change, location trigger for geofencing things, time triggers. You can also send a push notification, a raw notification from your backend systems, and cause that to run some code. Woohoo! Yeah, and loads of other stuff. We've got a new tiles and notification system, really massively expanded. There's loads of new good stuff you can do with tiles notifications, a whole session on that coming tomorrow. The Action Center I mentioned, this is programmable, so this is the one where you can actually put silent notifications. So if any of you have upgraded your app will know about this. So every so often you'll get a notification, and because some apps the store has updated some apps for you silently, and it will just put it won't put a pop-up on the screen to interrupt you, but it will stick it into the notification center. You can do stuff like that from your apps. Great stuff with app data. So now, we're going to talk a lot about this actually later this afternoon. You can actually have roaming data, so you can have settings, you set on your phone app, and then you go out and pick up your tablet and you're running the same app on that, and it will have picked up the same settings the personalization settings that you'd already changed on the phone, so your colors or your preferences. And this is really a great experience for users using our apps.
And we've got 3 flavors of storage. And it roams across different devices as well. So tablet and phone versions of apps get the same details. Share contract is really awesome. This is a new way of sharing, very flexible. We're going to talk about that this afternoon, where you can much richer ways of sharing content between your app. We expect most apps to be share sources, and fewer, it will be the Facebooks of this world, would be share targets. Great support for geofencing, so you can have up to 1,000 geofences in an app, which sounds like a mind-boggling amount of geofences. And whether that's a practical limit is another matter. But
actually, the practical limit is way higher than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 1,000 is, we don't recommend going over 1,000, and the practical limit is really absurdly large.
And if you manage to come up with an app that needs 1,000, good on you.
Right.
Yeah. Good video editing. This is where we've kind of converged. Windows Phone has converged ahead of Windows here, in that we've got video editing, which is available on the phone. Actually, this is a feature that isn't available on Windows 8.1. Everything else I've been talking about to now is available on Windows 8.1. We've got this nice thing called the screen recorder, which we see being used for gaming, really, where the application could choose, maybe a user's getting close to crashing through a level, and they're close to a big success. So the app can turn on recording after getting confirmation from the user, of course. And then if you beat the level, you could then pop up a dialog saying, hey, well done, do you want to share this? And the user will say, yeah, absolutely. And then it will automatically transcode that captured video to VJ and upload it as an MP4 up to the cloud for sharing through your favorite social network. That's pretty awesome. Bluetooth LE, great for kind of key finders and sensors and heart rate monitors and all that kind of stuff. Great support for that. Bluetooth RF COM as well for more sort of serial port emulation Bluetooth devices. And these come all with background tasks and triggers as well. So you can actually run some code when you've forgotten your keys. So you can raise an alert and that kind of stuff. Loads of great stuff for the enterprise. A huge amount of new management. We've got a whole session of this coming tomorrow afternoon. Client certificate authentication. So we've got mutual authentication now, not just server certificates, but you can have client certificates as well. The Windows cryptography APIs come for us. We've got enterprise Wi-Fi, VPN support, app-triggered VPN. S-MIME, which is encrypted email, and great ways for enterprises to manage the apps on the end users' devices for fully managed devices where an enterprise is giving them out to its personnel. Sort of coupled with that, we've got great new stuff for identity and authentication and single sign-on. So this web authentication broker encapsulates all the complicated stuff of doing OAuth authentication against social providers. And we've got credential locker for secure storage. With website HTML5, we've got Internet Explorer 11 is on the phone. So if you're doing websites or using WinJS apps for building it. We've got great support for WebGL, which has been a big ask, and inline video, and loads of great stuff, great support for HTML5 features. Awesome tooling, of course, loads of great SDK tools, and the Windows Phone Power Tools for finding memory leaks and monitoring your performance and estimating the battery usage, and loads of great tools. We've got a session on that coming up at the end of tomorrow. And of course, much more, which I haven't got time to mention. So hopefully your particular favorite is coming up in this list now. So loads and loads of great new stuff. And we're going to touch on most of these through the sessions that are coming up. How do you get started? Well, go to dev.windows.com. It's our dev center, which is becoming our universal target for both. We're kind of bringing Windows Phone and Windows devs together. We've already got a single sign-on, so you can sign on once as a developer, and you are obviously building for both them. You can get the tools. If you haven't got the tools, get the tools from there as well, the free download of Visual Studio. And your dev PC needs to be running Windows 8.1. It can be an x86 or x64. Actually, in Windows Phone 8, it had to be x64, but we now support x86 for building for Windows Phone or Windows 8.1. Yeah, 4 gigs is really the minimum. So actually, in all honesty, I would recommend a 64-bit machine and try and get 8 gigs of RAM if you want to have a good experience with, especially if you're running emulators, because they take a load of memory because they are virtual machines, so you need loads of RAM. you don't need a dev account to get started, to download the SDK and start building tools. But if you want to publish an app or you want to do any push notifications, you do, because that's how you need to sort of register your apps with the store and start doing all of that.
Yeah, there are lots of things that are going to tie your application to some sort of store manifest.
Yeah.
Things like roaming data is also, you're just going to need an account.
Sure.
Got to do it.
Sure. So lastly, let's talk a little bit about your choices then as a XAML app developer. I've already made it clear that we've got 2 XAML stacks on Windows Phone 8.1. We've got the existing Silverlight one, which people have been using up till now, and we got the new Windows Runtime XAML, which is the same one we got on big Windows, which has come down to the phone. So what are your choices? Well, just a little bit of a timeline first. We started off with Windows Phone 7. I did the jump start for that, by the way. Silverlight, which is Windows Phone Silverlight. Now, this has nothing to do with the web browser plugin Silverlight. This is it has always been in Windows Phone about building native apps using the Silverlight API set and the Silverlight flavor of XAML. But these have always been about native apps. And we added loads of new stuff in Windows Phone 7.5, and then Windows Phone 8, it's all still Silverlight right the way through. And then this is where the new one, you can still use Silverlight with Windows Phone 8.1. Absolutely, totally a 100%. We love it. It's great. But this is with a converged one. If you want to start building an app and really getting the full benefit of sharing your bits of your XAML between the two, then this is the flavor of XAML that you probably want to be adopting in the future. Yep. But I want to stress that loads of the Windows Runtime APIs and most of what we're talking about, apart from these next sessions 2 through 8, which is just about building Windows Runtime XAML, the UI layer, but all the other stuff, the APIs, all the sharing, all the other stuff I ran through there is available to both platforms.
Right. So if we've got an existing application, you want to right-click on it and update it to Windows Phone 8.1 Silverlight, you get all those features that we'll be talking about. Yeah.
In fact, I might even show that in just a second. So here's your choices. If you're a XAML app developer, what can you do? Well, you can carry on using your existing flavor of Silverlight. You don't even have to build a Silverlight 8.1 app, because then your apps will continue to run across all the phones that are out there. And of course, there's not many at the moment, Phone 8.1 devices, apart from all the eager devs who have upgraded their phones. In terms of consumers, there's not many devices out there, and obviously that will ramp up over the coming months. If you want to build a Silverlight 8.1 app, you can. And then those apps then, if you're building Silverlight 8.1, will only run on 8.1 phones. Or you can move over to the Windows XAML platform, where you're getting all the full advantages of the full convergence, same XAML, same framework around the XAML that runs on both. There are a few features that you can only do on Silverlight. There's a few list of them there. I'll just leave you to read those. It's a very small set, and we are going to be working on bringing those into the converged set in future updates. But these are the ones that are Silverlight only. So that if you need those, that forces you down the Silverlight path. We can very easily upgrade Silverlight 8.0 apps to Silverlight 8.1, and that gives you access to all of the new APIs. These are the Windows Runtime APIs, email with attachments, the new WNS notifications, credential locker, the app data roaming, all that kind of stuff I was talking about. That all becomes available to you in a Silverlight 8.1 app. I'll do a very quick demo just to show you, and all I'm going to do is create a file, new project. And if we go down to Windows Phone here, the top ones, the brackets Windows Phone, these are Windows Runtime flavors, Windows Runtime XAML apps. But then you get down here, and now we get the Windows Phone Silverlight. So we can create a Windows Phone Silverlight app. And this is a Windows Phone. It asks you which version, 8.0 or 8.1. I'm going to start with 8.0. And this is now a Silverlight app that we know and love, and exactly the same as you would have created before. And all I'm going to do is just show you, I'm going to view something called the object browser, which is, you can look at all of the objects, all the namespaces that are declared in your app. All the system dot and this kind of thing, these are all .NET APIs. This is your traditional Silverlight stack, if you like. This one at the bottom, Windows, this is the Windows Runtime. There's a fair amount of stuff there. Actually, like I said, there was a small amount of convergence, if you remember, that small convergence. So that's the Windows Phone 8.1. Now, let's upgrade this to retarget it to Windows Phone 8.1. Bit of a warning, it says you can't undo this, I want to back it up and this sort of thing. Okay, now this is a Silverlight 8.1. If we go to the object browser again and do the same thing and just expand our windows, now you've got the full shooting match, everything, Windows.media, Windows.networking, Windows.phone, all sorts of stuff, storage, pickers and all this, everything is all in there. This is the Windows Runtime, so you still get the converged Windows Runtime if you like, but not the Windows Runtime XAML, of course, because that wouldn't make sense because you've got Silverlight XAML. So there, that's that was a very brief session, demo of that. So, in summary, the key deliverables for Windows Phone 8.1 is, first of all, that all your existing Windows Phone 8 apps will run flawlessly. So back compat is non-negotiable for us. Everything you got up to now will keep on running on a Phone 8.1 device. So if you move to we've got this Windows Runtime XAML platform and the WinJS platform that brings convergence with Windows 8.1. And actually, if you want the true convergence, you're going to want to use this one. They are actually all better perform. They've got more features and they run faster and use less memory. It is better than the Silverlight platform. And using that, you can build, share loads of code and bits of XAML. And although we do stress it's best to tailor the user experience for each platform. We've also converging across the tools, store, and commerce. But if you still want to stay with Silverlight, totally love you for that. It's awesome. You can still carry on doing that, and you can also get access with Silverlight 8.1 to all of these new Silverlight Win RT APIs that are not to do with the XAML side of things. So, in summary, now is the time to build for Windows and Windows Phone. It's never been such an exciting time to be a mobile app developer. There we go. That's the first session all wrapped. We're going to take a bit of a break now, and then we'll come back on the top of the hour, and we're going to start looking at building Windows Runtime XAML apps for Windows Phone 8.1. All right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed a little break there, cup of tea or whatever it is you particularly like. That quick introduction, I know we've got a lot of questions for people. You want to know more. I know it's awful when you just have a real high level thing and everybody wants all the information straight away. Stick with us, we've got it all for you. I'm going to start now. This is this kind of mini course, if you like, this looking at the new XAML framework. It's about the XAML design and also about digging into how apps behave running under the Windows runtime, XAML-based apps. So this first one is, if you're already a XAML-based developer, if you're already a Windows 8.1 store app developer, then what I'm going to show you here is going to seem pretty familiar to you in a lot of ways, which is good. It's a converged platform. It's awesome. So you're going to think, oh, that's all right. I can build for phone. There is a load of stuff in here still, though, that's phone specific about things like how the status bar at the top and the app bar at the bottom, how they behave on phone. So there's still obviously plenty for you to learn that will be new. If you're a Silverlight app developer, this is going to look kind of familiar, but yet strangely different. So this is the new way of building Windows XAML-based apps for Windows Phone 8.1. We've got 7 modules that kind of go through each aspect of that, and then after that we go drop down a level below the views and start looking at the APIs. So in this one we're going to look, and some of this is going to be a bit introductory because I know that a lot of the people who are going to be watching this are experienced and have built apps before. But equally, there's a lot of people who will not. So some of this is going to be introductory, but just bear with me. We very quickly, halfway through this module, get into phone-specific stuff that will be new to everybody. So we're going to introduce XAML, if you haven't met it before, a little bit about how you lay out a page. And we're going to build a single-page app in this module, just one page, just to keep it simple. And over a bit more detail about the controls we've got to use to build a UI, looking about stars and themes and the app bar and the status bar. So a lot of stuff. I'm going to keep the pace up, I'm afraid. So we already looked at this in the introductory session. If you want to create an app, a project in Visual Studio 2013, we've got all those different project templates that you saw already, Universal, Windows, and Windows Phone. If we create a Windows Runtime app project, kind of looks a bit like this. You've got your solution. A solution is your high-level container for one or more projects. So here is typically, if you create an app for just Windows Phone, you'd have a single project in there. And this one is called App 6. And in brackets, it tells you what platform it's targeting, Windows Phone 8.1. Then you've got some references. These are the libraries it's referencing, which is the Windows Phone app, which is the Windows Runtime stack for the Windows Runtime XAML stack for these apps, and then also .NET for Windows Store apps as well. This is a C# app, so there's a number of .NET classes. We then got a bunch of assets. This is kind of artwork. So you need to put in here your default application tile and your wide tiles, and also a bit of artwork needed for the store app and the application icon that appears in the programs list on the phone. So there's artwork associated with your app. Then we've got app.xaml and its code behind, app.xaml.cs, or code beside, whatever you like to call that. This is kind of a singleton. This is the Uber object, if you like, for an app. It's where all the initialization launch logic runs. It does the initial navigation to your first page. So this is kind of, the bootstrap logic for your app goes in here, and also you might put some XAML resources that are shared. Then you got one or more pages, so it depends on which template you choose to create a new project. The basic app, the blank app, will have just a single page in it, and typically it's called main page. You could call it whatever you like. And then we've got this AppX manifest, the package app manifest. This is where we already went into that in the demo, the Universal App demo in session 1, to set toast enabled. We clicked that. All that is an XML file. So when you're working with the package, the manifest designer, and clicking things in there, all it's doing is writing XML into this file underneath. And this is the declaration that goes with your app about what it does, if it needs any special access to kind of networks or to user data. This all goes in here. And we build apps, and we're going to look at this is an old favorite. Anybody who's followed any of the jump starts before will recognize this. This is an example of a page from something called the Contoso Cookbook, which I found out recently on Twitter the other week. It was actually written by Jeff Prozais of Wintellect. Yeah, originally. I didn't know that. So hats off to Jeff. We got plenty of mileage out of this guy. And this is actually the app I used in the Windows Phone 8 Jumpstart. And then we were thinking, what should we do for the Windows Phone 8.1? And I thought, well, given that it's kind of the same but different, why don't we use the Contoso Cookbook again? Because then if you're interested and want to look at how they look side by side, you can look at the Silverlight 8.0 version, which is in the Windows Phone 8 Jumpstart, and actually will turn up again in the very last session, session 23, when we look at Silverlight 8.1. And you can compare it to this, which is the Windows Runtime version of the same thing. So every page, anyway, back to the text, every page that you make up is defined by XAML, which is Extensible Application Markup Language. It's a particular dialect of... can we get the countdown clock running? Yeah, just talk to our support at the back so I know how much time we've got. Thank you. And yeah, so you're working in XML effectively, and that defines your everything you see on that screen is defined by XML. So and we worked with some controls already. So there's a text block at the top, and we're applying styles, so they're different, bigger and smaller text. Then we've got another text block, which is our title, Quiche Lorraine. Then we've got an image element and another text block, and so it goes on. A text block is just for showing text output, and then everything sits inside a layout control, and in this case probably a grid. Then we've got other layout controls, which are all about arranging these controls together. So a stack panel where you can stick controls into it and it will automatically stack them either vertically, as in this case, or in the bottom one, horizontally. So these layout controls all work together. We're going to build this in a minute, so if you're not used to this and haven't done any XAML design, you'll be able to see how it works. And on each XAML element, we put properties on it, like how high up in X and Y coordinates of where it is on the screen, what's the height and width, what font are we using, what the color is, and all this kind of stuff. And that actually, the properties you set on an XML element are obviously defined as attributes in XML. These are used by the XAML renderer to figure out how to draw the resultant scene to the screen. So dig a bit deeper into the different controls. So I touched there on these container controls. These are all the kind of, if you could call these as panels, if you like. There are different kinds of panels. Canvas is one. Actually, I don't think I've ever used a canvas, to be honest. You can draw elements anywhere on a canvas. But typically, if you want to have a kind of a free-form screen where you want to put stuff, you just have a single-cell grid, which is actually the same thing. Stack panel, as I said, stacks things vertically or horizontally, and a grid you can actually divide it up into multiple different cells. So here's a stack panel, a few examples of a stack panel. And you see at the top one we've got a stack panel which has got a certain width. What you're seeing on the left is the XAML, and on the right is what it looks like. And you see that bit in the yellow things. We've got a width of 200 and a height of 50, and then we've got a horizontal alignment of center. So that's why that red square, that red rectangle, is appearing in the center at a width of 200 and a height of 50. And then underneath that, we've got stacked vertically underneath it, because it's the default for a stack panel is vertical orientation. We've got another rectangle which is painted orange. And that one has a width of 200 and a height of 50, and again is center. But then we have this margin property which offsets it. So we've got a margin has 4 elements: left, top, right, and bottom. So minus 20 there is the left, and minus 10 is the top, which is why you're seeing it shifted slightly leftwards and slightly upwards, seeing as how we count down from the top, positioning that one. And then you can see the bottom one has a stack panel orientation of horizontal, where we've just got 4 buttons, fee, fi, fo, fum, and unsurprisingly, it just stacks them, positions them horizontally. That margin equals 20 puts a margin between every element inside it. So you can see examples of how that works. Grid is much more complicated. You can actually define columns and rows in it, and then any elements you put underneath it, you have these thing called attached properties. So if you look at the second second yellow picked out box underneath there, we've got 3 rectangles, and we've got these attached properties where the first one says grid.row equals 0, grid.column equals 0, which is the default, by the way. If you don't specify anything, that's where they'll go. They'll go into the top left element of the grid. And then underneath that, we've got grid 0, row 0, column 1, so that will go in the top row and the second column across. And then the third one is grid row 0, grid.column equals 2, so it goes in the third cell across the top row. And then underneath that, you can see that we're actually sticking stuff into the top row as well, into different columns. And you can see how stuff gets laid out. Here's another example where you can actually nest grids as well. You can nest controls as well. So we have rectangles, text box, and then underneath that we've got a stack panel, and inside that we've got another stack panel. So and then we've got a number of then we've got a load of text blocks in there. So let's actually start building our Contoso cookbook and put that into an example that you'll be able to follow through. Over to Visual Studio, and this is a project I've created called Contoso Cookbook Simple, which is a simple project. It's exactly the same as a blank project, apart from the fact I've already added in all these images just to save a bit of time. So there's loads of pictures of different recipes. So we're going to build a single page, and then as the morning goes on and into the afternoon, we're going to expand this out and end up with a fully working app with all of the bits and pieces. So this is kind of our test piece for this building a Windows Runtime XAML app. So we're going to design the main page grid. So here's our main page. Let's get the designer up, drag that across. So we see plenty of XAML, and then we've got our design surface over there. And then we're going to start building our grid. We're going to split the, rather like we did before, we're going to select the grid and then put a row in it. I'm not going to particularly size it accurately. We'll fix that later on. So we've got 2 rows there, 143 star and 497 star. The star height means proportions. So the bottom has got 497ths of the page, and the top one has got 143s of the page. And so they're proportional sizes. We'll fix that up into something a bit more specific later on. So we're going to design the page header area first up here. So I'm going to go off to my toolbox. Let's just pin that in so we can see it. And it's, for some reason, it's adding in some items. There we go. Okay. Oh, hang on. Let's get our designer visible so we can make it a bit easier to work with. Okay. There's our designer, and get our toolbox up again, pin it out, and then we're going to make that a bit bigger, 50%. There we go. So there's our top region. So we've got our grid. We're going to drag a stack panel from here and paste it onto the top, and then just position it up. If you go up, you can see the red, you might be able to see the red siding. That means we stuck it up into the top thing there. I'm then going to right click onto that and get rid of it. It sticks something on. Let's put this over a bit. It's put it on, and it automatically puts all these margins on it and a height and a width for default, but actually I want it to simply fill that area. So I'm going to fix that by going layout, reset all, and now our stack panel completely fills that top area of the grid. And then I'm going to set a bit of a margin on it so that we offset that so it's nicely laid out. So I'm going to go down here to layout, and lots of properties you can set in here. I'm going to put a left margin on it of 10 and a top margin on it of bottom margin of 30. So that will that just puts a bit of spacing from the top and a bit of spacing from below. And you'll see actually by changing those properties, it simply wrote that into the XAML. So it's just about nice layout. Then I'm going to get a text block and drop that onto my onto the stack panel. So it's positioned up in the top left corner. I'm going to resize that so I can right click on it and say edit style, and we get loads of built-in styles. So I'm going to use one that's going to make it nice and big, which is a title text block style. Oh, not so big, not so small. The next one's going to be bigger. And I'm going to change the text on that to what it should be, which is, of course, the Contoso cookbook. So there's our header, and then I'm going to drag myself another text block and drop that underneath it in the stack panel. This is the one that I want to put a bigger style on it. Edit style, apply resource, and this one I'm going to use a header text block style, which is a nice big one, which is typically you'd see there. So there's our text is currently text block. I'm going to change that to, we're going to do quiche, spell it right, Lorraine. So this is going to be a one page from our recipe book. So there we go, quiche Lorraine. Now I'm also going to make sure that this doesn't overflow on smaller devices. So we can, if we had too big text, that fits nicely on there. But if we do it on a smaller device, so we're going to go, you can go into TeleSense. You can change things directly in the XAML as well, or you can change them in the properties. So loads of ways to set this up. And then we're going to have text trimming on here is equal to character ellipsis. So it will automatically trim it if it can't fit it in. So that's a nice feature we can do. It's a new feature with text blocks that was not available on Silverlight XAML. Then it'll look a bit like this. So now we're going to, I'm going to just change the size of our grid here. This row, which is currently 140/3 of it, I'm just going to change that to be an auto-sized row. So what that means is it just automatically sizes it to contain whatever controls you put in it. So this is one of the nice fluid layout things that we've got with XAML. So that is automatically sized for whatever you put in it. And then the rest of it now has changed to 1 star because it's 1/1 of whatever is left. So if we added more rows, that we could divide it up in a fluid way as well. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now I'm going to build my content out. So I'm going to drag a grid from the toolbox, and I want to build this content area down here. So go and find ourselves a grid. I'm going to lay out the content area, and that's going to go into row 1, column 0, which is the only column of our container grid. Again, I'm going to fix the layout, reset all. So now it fills the entire space of that. And then I'm going to create some rows in that. And this time I'm actually going to, just to show that I can, rather than use the designer, I'm going to actually type it directly into the XAML. So you can go grid. And most people, they use whatever suits them as to how they want to work with XAML. So here's my grid row definition. Some people like to type it in, and some people like to use the tools, sometimes the designers or the property window. You've got all of those options. And this height is going to be equal to, and I'm going to use the star thing here, 109 star. So that's my first one, and then we're going to add another one under another row under there. So, I'll get my opening my tag right. Row definition, and this one height is going to be of 155 star. Okay, and then I need another row which is going to have the preparation time. So the top row is going to be an image, then we've got our instructions for the recipe, and our bottom row is going to be height of, actually this one is just going to be an auto one. So we're going to stick the preparation time into that. Okay, so we're going to drag an image onto the top row. This is going to be our image, and we're going to stick that into there, and again just position. Oh, not that. And then position it into that top cell. Do a layout reset all. So it fills all of that cell in our grid. And then we can go and put a nice image onto it. So let's go and find our source property. Here's our source property. And if you do a drop down, you can see all of the images that are in the project which I put in to start. I'm going to choose that one. There we go. Looks like a quiche Lorraine. And we're going to set that to uniform to actually fill the whole area. So now we've got a nice image. So this is coming together. And now I need to do the instructions bit. So the instruction bit is going down here underneath the image. But actually instructions could be quite long. So what I'm going to do is put a multi-line text block on there, but I'm going to put it inside a scroll viewer control, which allows it to scroll up and down. So there we go. The scroll viewer. Again, reset all, layout, reset all, and now that fills the area. So there's our scroll viewer. And then I'm going to open up this scroll viewer. So now I've got open, close tags, and then I'm just going to save a bit of time. I'm going to put my text block in there. I'm going to go Control Q, insert the XAML snippet, and I've got, here is my instructions. Now, this is a particularly ugly and crazy bit of UI design here. You will see that I've got this text block in here, and it's you would of course not build an app like this. I'm doing this for a reason, because we're going to come back and make this look nice and fix it later on. But I wanted to build a single page app, and this is kind of how we wanted to do it. Okay, so loads of text in there. Now, one thing you'll notice. Make this is that it's hard up against the left here. I don't quite like that, so I want to just put a bit of a margin on this containing grid. Let's put a left and right margin on it, so this is nicely spaced. It's 10, by the way. If you're a Silverlight developer, you might be used to, the magic number used to be 12, but with Windows Runtime XAML, it more likely tends to end up as 10. So there we've got a nice little bit of spacing. We're nearly done with this, so now I need to. We're just going to put the last little bits of this onto this. So under the scroll viewer, I'm going to save a bit of time. Go Control X. I've got another snippet just to finish this off, which is the prep time. So here we've got the prep time down the bottom here, which is a bit of text, and then the number of minutes it will take, and that XAML I just pasted in. You'll notice that the foreground color is something called the phone accent brush. This is how you show stuff on the screen using the user selected accent color. We'll come on to that accent color and things in a little while. So that should be good. We can run it, and that's we've got a quite nice looking one-page app that I've built out using all those layout controls. There we go. And quiche Lorraine, and it's this instructions. You see it in the scroll viewer, so you can scroll and read all the instructions. Not perhaps the best formatting, but there you are. It's all there. And there's our image. It's a single page app. There are no pages to go to, but that's a good starting point and gives you a flavor for designing in Windows Runtime XAML. All right. Okay, so that was a demo, so laying out controls and building out the first version of our Contoso cookbook that we're going to add to. I very briefly introduced these categories of controls in the first session, the common controls, which look exactly the same when you use them both Windows and on Windows Phone. The optimized ones, which is like the date picker, the command bar is another one, and the time picker, and there's a few others where you program them the same in the XAML for your views for the Windows Phone, and you program exactly the same in your views for big Windows, but they might actually render slightly differently because they're optimized for the platform. And then you've got these signature controls, and we're going to dig a bit deeper into all of these categories. So the signature ones are the ones that encapsulate the best practices, the nice behavior. So the common controls first. As it says, a button is a button. What is a button? It's a, there's not a lot of variation for a button. So these are the common controls. We're going to start not with buttons, but with text handling controls. If you're a Silverlight Windows Phone developer, you will be pleased to see lots of nice new features, such as these headers. Text boxes have headers. Yeah.
Yes.
How nice is that? So you see on the graphic on the right, you've got text box header text and spell checking and placeholder text. Those are all headers. So they're just properties on the control. You don't have to have separate text blocks, so that's awesome. Rich text block, which paragraphs and spans, and you can have richly formatted text. Obviously, the text box for text input, and that has spell checking, placeholder text, text prediction, and input scope, which we're going to talk about in just a second. And then the password box, which obviously obscures your text entry, but not enough when you're doing demos because everybody can see the character for a second. But anyway, that's a problem for us, not for you. Yeah, input scope. So this is one of the properties you can put on a text box, which influences the particular keyboard the phone shell will display for you. So the top example there, you say inputs, you've got text box, input scope equals email SMTP address. So you'll see that what it does is it adds in onto the keyboard, it displays characters right up there that are commonly used in email addresses. And the next one is a currency amount and symbol. And actually there's about, is there 20 of these? Different input scopes?
The input scopes, yeah.
Yeah,
there's
about 20 of these.
A couple dozen.
Yeah, there's quite a few. So, and they're kind of, you can consider them to be hints to the phone, and it will do its best guess to try and give you the appropriate keyboard, depending which locale you're in and all that sort of thing. So, but this middle one there, currency amount and symbol, is numbers and currency symbols, and then the bottom one is just a number one. So you can really help the usability of your app by putting the right input scope depending on the kind of data you are expecting them to put in. Now, these don't actually limit the kind of data they can put in, because you could have a user that has copied some text on some other in an email, OneNote or whatever, and then they're in your app, and you can put this nice number input scope up, but they will quite happily choose to paste the text into your text box. So you must still obviously put code into your app to verify the data that they've entered. So, but this obviously helps your users to get the right kind of encourages them to put the right kind of input in an easy way. Buttons, right? Buttons and hyperlinks. Yeah, so a button. I always like this idea that XAML controls are kind of they used to be described, still are described as lookless controls, in the sense that actually when you drag a button out of the toolbox and stick it onto your page, and it comes up with a nice square button, like the simple button at the top there. That simple button, that's what you think to be a button, but actually all you're doing there is putting a control onto your page with some kind of default rendering. So all of the controls that we give you in the SDK have got default templates that define what they look like when you just drag them out of the toolbox and drop them on. That's not to mean you're stuck with that. As the second one, there are certain properties on a control like the button where you can change the background, the border brush. Like the second example, that colored button is a nice colored button. It's still the same as the previous button, but obviously looks different. But a button at the end of the day is just something that the user can click. That's what a button is. And then that Microsoft Surface 2 there is a good example of something that the user can click, which actually is that all of that is defined by that content that's called out by the yellow dashed box in the middle of the slide there. So you can re-template a grid till the cows come home. So here we've got a button where actually its content, what you are showing in this button, is a grid with 2 columns, and in those columns you've got an image and a stack panel containing 2 text blocks, and the result is what you see on the right there. So very, very flexible. All of these controls have re-template. That's when we say something is re-templatable, this is the kind of thing we're talking about, where you can go in and change the layout of a header or its whole appearance if you want. And then the bottom one there is a hyperlink button, which is a simple hyperlink where the user can tap on it and it will navigate to something in the web browser. And all buttons have click events associated with them. So when the user presses a button or selects an item in a list or in some way chooses some control radio button in your UI, you run some code and you can do stuff. And of course, there's loads of other kinds of buttons: toggle buttons, checkboxes, and radio buttons, app bar buttons. We're going to come to in a while. We have progress rings and progress bars. These are very important. They're important across all mobile apps, particularly important in phone apps because you want to avoid that user frustration thing. When your code is doing something that's taking a bit of time, you need to keep them informed that something is happening. And you do that with progress rings and progress bars. And we've got these controls that are very easy to do that in line. Later on, I'm going to tell you how to put a progress, one of these indeterminate, the dots that race across the screen, put that up in the status bar, which actually I would say is kind of the de facto standard for most phone apps. You want to put it up on the top of the screen in the status bar. But if you want to put it in line, these are the controls to use. These optimized controls, right, the date picker, time picker. So these are the same API on both Windows and Windows Phone, but they actually render differently, and they're very flexible as well. We've also got this thing called flyouts, and I want to call these out. So these are built into a lot of the controls in any case, such as the list picker and this sort of thing. So, and these also are optimized in the sense that on big Windows they might just give you a drop-down box, whereas on Windows Phone, typically when you get over five items, it will go full screen on you. So an example: choose an app over there, and there is a flyout that has gone full screen on you. So they tend to be flexible, and they'll either show inline if it's a small number of items, or full screen if they're not. Now, if they're inline, if it's just these tend to be light dismiss, which means that as soon as you hit the back button, they disappear. Or if it's actually over an overlay, if you've only got a small number of items and it's showing on your screen, if the user just taps outside of it, and I'll show an example of this in a moment, they'll just automatically dismiss. They'll disappear. So this is the way you might do a context menu. So the bottom example there is a button flyout with a menu attached to it. So when the user taps that button, show menu flyout, you get this flyout, the pop-up menu will come up, and the user can toggle one of the options on it. This is a very interesting one. This is a phone-only control. This is one that's not available on big Windows. Everything else I've talked to you so far is available on both. But this is a custom message box. So it's a custom message dialog, if you like, where you can place arbitrary content. And it supports, like, the left one is a partial screen and the one on the right is a full screen. The way you use this, in its simplest way, you can just use it in code. You can say contact dialog equals a new dialog, set some properties on it, and then hook up some event handlers. You can see there we've hooked up an event handler on the secondary button click. And then you call content dialog result equals await dialog.showAsync, and that will show the dialog up, and then when that code is executed, you'll be able to check the result and see which button the user pressed. But actually, the more usual way you will use a content dialog is actually as a bit like creating the user control. So here you can go into project add new item, and one of the items on the add new item is a content dialog, and that will stick this about dialog in this example, whatever name you give it, into your project, and then you can code the UI just the same as if you were building a page, and design it and put your logic in it, and then when you want to use it, you use the code shown on the bottom left there. You new an instance of it up in your code behind, and then call the showAsync method on it to actually show it on the screen. So that's nice. We've got auto suggest boxes, another phone-only control, where you write some code to provide suggestions, and it will also give you back give you selections so that you can tap on one to select it. Then we got these. Now I'm going to just talk a little bit about some of the system UI, the app bar, the status bar, and soft buttons. These are kind of controls and kind of system UI. So these are the bits that the system will show at times to intrude on your display surface. So we've got the status bar at the top there, which is where all your icons go for, like, battery strength and whether you're on Wi-Fi and whether you're roaming and which strength of network you're on, all that kind of stuff, and a little clock and that sort of thing. And then at the bottom, we've got the app bar, which is the application bar, which you can program to put the primary commands that the user is going to be tapping on to interact with your app. So typically they'll be confirm and cancel kind of buttons or something pretty major. And also the little ellipsis on the right side of the app bar, that's where you can put secondary commands, which will be text options that will show. So we'll look at this in a little moment. The other bit of system UI, there's also on some phones, there's going to be this navigation bar, which up till now, pretty much every phone has had hardware capacitive touch buttons on there. So they're part of the kind of casing of the phone almost. You're going to see increasingly a lot of new phones coming out, and in fact most of the ones I've seen that are about to be released are these. You just get a big slab of glass in a nice shell, and then the actual navigation bar buttons, the soft buttons, the back button and the Windows button and the search button, they are actually going to be sort of just rendered on the screen at the bottom there, and they're not going to be hardware buttons on these phones. So that's again system UI, so they are kind of shown on the screen. And that's also consists of system UI. And then the other one is, of course, if you get a phone call, you get the pop-up stuff, the in-call UI that shows when you're taking a call. And all of these four are considered system UI. Now, the app bar, or command bar, the bottom app bar, how you program it in XAML is a bit like this. I talked a little about the primary commands and the secondary commands. These are your primary commands where you put a label, which is the little text hint, and then a icon, which is an image that goes with it. I've got a little demo in a moment, I'll show you. And then underneath that, we've got a secondary command, which again has a label and an icon. Actually, on phone, it will ignore the icon, and it will just show the text. So this is what that XAML looks like on Windows Phone and on big Windows. We've got our primary commands, edit and favorite, which are shown on Windows Phone as an icon button. And then underneath we've got the secondary command, which is help, which is on the kind of the secondary menu, the text menu underneath. On big Windows, your primary commands end up as buttons on the right, icon buttons, unless you're in a right to left language, of course, in which case it's all reversed. But if you're in a left to right locale, this is what it looks like. And your secondary commands, the less important ones, appear on the left. So this command bar was actually announced at Build last year, 2013, for Windows 8.1.
Yep.
But this is an example actually how the Windows Phone and the Windows team were converging their efforts even way back then, because the command bar is this new control, and it's a very flexible control. You know, if you resize on a tablet, it automatically resizes everything and shrinks the controls to fit. It's very clever. But this is a great example of a control that you program exactly the same on Windows Phone and on big Windows, and that was brought into Windows 8.1 not only to make Windows developers' life easy, but it was also a marker for what was coming with this release with Windows Phone 8.1. So there are some differences from Windows, which I'm just going to call out. On big Windows, you can have a top app bar. Not on phone. We're only having a bottom app bar, so you can only have that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but actually you could put a top app bar in your XAML. It might just be ignored, or it might throw an exception.
Yeah, no, it will just ignore it, and it does the same with with the bottom app bar. If you put in commands that can't render, or too many commands, too many primary commands.
Oh yeah, because you only got 4 for phone.
Right,
yeah.
It'll show up on Windows and it'll just ignore it.
Yeah. And the other thing with big Windows with an app bar is that in order to see it, it's not normally visible. So in order to see it, you have to put a gesture. You have to do a little swipe from the top of the screen, and then your app bars are shown. That's obviously not true on phone either. The app bars, if you program them there, they're always there, unless you programmatically set the visibility to collapsed. So they're always visible unless you programmatically hide it. So it's not transient at all on phone. And you can minimize the app bar on Windows Phone. So that minimized is that graphic is showing a minimized app bar. There's no concept of that on big Windows. That'll just be ignored on Windows, big Windows. So altogether it's converged XAML, but certain properties are just not going to make any sense and will be ignored depending on which platform you're using that XAML on. The icons are really cool. So you can just specify a symbol icon by name, and we've got great help with the tools for doing this. Or you can set a URI source, you can set a bitmap icon, a font icon, a path icon, loads of flexibility and that sort of thing. And you can have flyouts. You can have these nice flyouts on an app bar button as well. So in this case, the user's tapped on the little photo app bar button, and the photo video flyout menu has popped up. And the XAML for doing that is, as you can see there on the slide, where you've got an app bar button inside it, it contains a flyout, which is a menu flyout with those 2 items on it. And we've got names and text on it. So there you see an example of how you can bring those flyouts and the app bar buttons together. The status bar at the top, this is something you can only influence by code. So there's no XAML for programming the status bar. There's a whole bunch of methods where you can cause it to be show async. You can hide it. As you can see, running down the list here of the XAML example, you can show it or hide it. Now, by default, the background color of the status bar is it's fully transparent. Okay, so you can set the so you're just seeing through it, shining through it. You see the background of the page is what you're seeing when whatever color is showing through the background of that status bar. But you can set the background color explicitly in code, and you can change the opacity of that as well. And if you really want to know the size of it, which in most cases you're not, for reasons I will come to in a minute, but if you really want to know the size of it, then there's a property on it called occluded rect. Now that progress indicator, I mentioned earlier in the session, we've got these progress rings and progress status bars and that sort of thing. This is how you put it into the status bar. This is the de facto standard, is where you probably want to put it most times. And you simply call status bar.get for current view .show async. You can then get the progress indicator property of that, gets you a reference to that progress indicator. You can then set text on it, and you can set it indeterminate, this is the default, or you can actually set a value on it if you want to do a kind of a rolling one. And then you just call show async, and it shows it, and hide async to hide it. So nice and simple. Now, why is all this interesting? Well, it's interesting because these are the bits of UI that are kind of maybe there, maybe not there, depending on what what properties you set on it, whether you've set your status bar to be hidden or showing, or whether you've set an application bar to be there, or whether it's hidden or where it's gone away. So these bits of UI are bits kind of, they're not really owned by you as the app developer, but they're kind of there. What does the app actually do about it? Well, the good news is your display area that you are drawing to, the 0, 0 view pixel position, which is your kind of the top left corner of your canvas, that starts immediately under the status bar on the top left hand corner of the screen. And it extends automatically down to the top edge of your application bar. And that it becomes your area, and it dynamically changes. So if you in your code you set the visibility of your application bar to hidden, and the application bar goes away, then your area will automatically expand out that you can draw to. Now, and this all happens for you automatically, so you don't have to worry about this, and it actually makes designing for this very, very simple. There are going to be a few cases, and I'm talking a very few, where you don't want that behavior to happen. You want to have the full screen, whatever, and you want to have a bit more control. I'm struggling to think of a reason, but if you think of a reason for it, you can override this automatic adjustment behavior. There's this code line at the bottom. You can do set layout bounds to application view layout bounds.core window bounds. That basically means you get the full display area, but it means you have to write a load of code yourself to react when the application bars come up and when the status bar is visible, and to adjust it for what you want. We've also got these, I mentioned these soft buttons, the transport buttons, if you like, the back button, the Windows button, and the search button. Those are normally visible as well, and part of this, and just taken care of. But one nice thing about that, when you're playing full screen video, it really is full screen. So those buttons will disappear, and you need to if you just tap on the screen, then you'll get it will slide into view again. So they're kind of soft hidden, if you like, and just touch on the screen and those transport buttons will come back in, and you can hit the back button or the Windows button just the same as you would normally. So it gives you a good experience if you're watching video. Right, very quick demo just to show all of that. I need to set that to I need to set my PC. I'm remote desktoping in, so to stop it doing that, because that's annoying. All right, here we go. So we're still in our Contoso cookbook. I'm just going to switch to existing project I've got. So this is kind of illustrating this thing. The code in this visible bounds demo is just to show you how that works. So the important code behind it is how do you find out what your visible bounds are? I've got this method called report visible bounds. You can do this get for current view visible bounds, and then I'm going to just dump that out to the screen so we can see what our area is that we're writing to. So here's our app coming up on the emulator, and it's very simple. I've got here, you can see you've got visible bounds, and it tells you that the top corner of our area starts at 26.667 view pixels from the top. So our area that we're starting to draw from. We've got this long list here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is just a list. So it just shows that so you can see what the content area is. You can see that 1 actually starts immediately under the status bar, and then we've got our bottom margin is for this area is 606. Height and width is actually the height of the area that we're drawing to, and the width 400. So we've got 580 by 400 at the moment, and we're showing our app bar. Now if I show the transparent app bar, so we've got the page color, which I set to green, just to show you in the XAML. Here we go, page background. This property incidentally is ignored on big Windows, but you can set it on phone because of this weird behavior of this system UI. So we've set our transparent app bar, and we've seen the green color shine through. Doesn't change the 580 by 400. If we hide the app bar altogether, now our height has grown to 640 by 400. And we can set the status bar background, so we can change the color to be something we want. It's still 640 by 400. And if we hide the status bar altogether, now we've got the full screen, and our actual writable area that our UI is using is 667 by 400. Just put these back in, and you know that our UI, it all just automatically takes account of that. So nice and easy for you as an app developer. Right, I'm just going to wrap up this module talking a bit about styles, themes, and theme resources. I already styled a text block right at the beginning of the session. I had the title, header, text size, what they call the body text block size, title text block style, and the header text block style. And there are a few of these, not perhaps quite as many as we used to have with Silverlight XAML actually, but there's a bunch of these are selected for you. And you can have a look at them and see what the definition. I'll show you in a demo in a minute how to do that. But the key thing here is you get these built-in styles. You want to use them because they've got some interesting properties that help them to work to adapt automatically to different size displays, different size phones, and also to different size themes. Now, what do I mean by that? Theme and contrast preferences. This is something if you're a Windows dev and you're coming across to develop for Windows Phone, you probably won't be so familiar with this. I think you can actually set a theme in Windows app settings, but nobody ever does because it's kind of one of those hidden things in the control panel for big Windows. But this is definitely something that Windows Phone users do. They can change the background of their phone to be light or dark, and an accent color to be whatever they like. And you know, it's one of those things you wake up in the morning, you think, oh, do you know what? Today feels like a crimson day. So you go crimson, you know, and I want to have a white background. So you do that kind of stuff, and your whole phone, all the kind of built-in colors and the apps list and everything, all changes to that, which is very nice. We've also got in Windows Phone 8.1 really good support for ease of access. So if you have trouble seeing small text and you want to make it bigger, you can change your text size in the ease of access control panel shown on the right there. And this will now apply across, if you use the standard controls, text block and text box and that, this will apply to all third-party apps as well. And this is because of these theme resources. These theme resources that are being applied, they respect these settings. They're kind of smart resources, if you like. So yeah, this is list text enlargement support. This is a new thing for Windows Phone 8.1, which was kind of in Windows Phone 8. It was built into some of the built-in apps, but the third-party apps didn't get this. So the controls are all theme aware. So are using internally in their built-in templates, they're using these theme resources. Now you need to test for this. A lot of people make silly mistakes. I'll show this in a demo in just a moment. If you want to set a specific theme in your app, you don't want the user to be able to set your app to work in a white background or a dark background, you can set this requested theme property on the whole application as shown here. So this is your app.xaml file. You can set it and say, okay, on my whole application, I'm dark, regardless of what the user has set their phone to. And you can also actually set this, doesn't have to be at app level, you can set it on any control. So let's put that into a demo. I'm going to go back to my Contoso cookbook for this. File, open, project solution, and I'm going to go to styles and themes, Contoso cookbook. And this is, all I'm going to do is, this is actually, just for interesting, this is a universal app version. So I actually got a Windows version and a Windows Phone, just to drive home, for no other reason than just to remind you that everything I'm showing you works on both. So this is a universal version of the same thing. Regardless of that, I'm going to stay with the phone version of it. If we go to mainpage.xaml, and we'll go down and find that crazy, oh, okay, build. This is actually taking it on a bit. So here's we got some text in here, which if I go into this text block, you can set in the properties window. I could set the foreground to a brush. We could set it to a nice white brush, and in the XAML that should have set foreground to be, well, it's nearly all white. Well, that'll do. And then we'll run it on. Set that as the startup project and run it on the emulator, and our single page app will come up and it will look all right, but then you see that's all very nice, but then the user says, oh, do you know what, I want to go to settings. So we go down here to settings and we say, I really don't like, I want to change my colors and that sort of thing. So we're going to go to a nice orange and set the light theme. So that's all very nice. And now, oops, come back, thank you, and we go back. Oh, that doesn't work, that's weird. And then we go back and we go back to our app. I've got weirdness happening here. Oh, right, it's because I'm trying to use touch and thing at the same time. Ah, really, stop doing that. Okay, there we go. We're going back to our app. And look, well, it's just visible if you appear, but this is essentially the problem if you set explicit colors. So that is clearly not a good idea, which is why you don't want to do that. Instead, the theme resource, so be careful of setting foreground colors. Oh, by the way, here we are. If you actually want to go to the device tab, you can test this in Visual Studio because you can change the app theme in here, which reveals the problem just right away in the designer. And you can change the accent color as well if you want to. Not that that makes a huge amount of difference. So obviously that was a bad idea, and you don't want to set, so you want to test against that and don't start setting these things. You can actually drill into any of these. Here we go, body text block style. You can go to the definition. This goes into a file called generic.xaml. So this is actually the definition of a body text block style is something that is based on something called a base text block style. And this is defined actually ways up the top here somewhere. You see, these are all the themes and all the theme resources for everything that you're looking at, all the control templates. It's all defined in here. So you can define your own custom text block styles if you want, and base them on the existing ones that are supplied, and create your own ones to use if the ones that are supplied don't suit you. All right, so we're done with the first bit of that. We're going to take a little bit of a break now, and then I'm going to come back for one of these short sessions, one of these 25-minute sessions. Yeah. But this one, we're going to talk about page navigation and the right camera. Hi. Page navigation and a little bit and data binding, which is going to get rid of this nonsense with huge bits of text embedded into our XAML. So we'll see you in a moment.